Hi there. Welcome to another reflection back in the office for today. And today we're picking up the story of God's great rescue plan, still in Genesis, now looking at the story of Noah. And the story of Noah is it's a really interesting story from a whole bunch of perspectives. But before we get into it, I wanted to show you, because we're talking about Noah and therefore we're talking about the ark, I wanted to show you one of the most precious things that I own, and that is this here boat. If you can see that, I'll appear in the middle of the rigging for you. This boat is probably one of the it's one of the greatest things that I own. As a kid, this boat can actually go on the water. The rigging can all be set. There's a rudder at the back that you can tune so that it goes in the right sort of course. And I used to spend hours. I'd put the keel between two sofa cushions, and I'd get my Lego men, and they'd all be on there climbing the rigging. I used to spend ages thinking about what it'd be like to have a great sea voyage, and it never occurred to me what it might be like to be trapped on a boat with the same bunch of people, unable to sort of get much space, get much personal freedom. And I never really thought of the Noah story as a story about isolation and what it must be like. And that's one of the ways in which the story of Noah in the Bible is really interesting, because you may be aware that there are lots of similar stories to Noah written at the similar sort of times. The story of Noah is written in a similar sort of places in the ancient Near East, about people who are caught in these great cataclysms, these great floods. And historians have different perspectives on why different cultures might have these stories. It may well be that there's a real flood that happened in that region centuries before those cultures started having a written narrative but had a verbal history. But what's interesting about the Noah story is the way in which it's different. The other ancient stories, like Gilgamesh that you might have heard of, really focus on the heroes of the story. They really focus on their cunning, their wit, their ability to dupe the gods, who are always portrayed as foolish, whose reasons for bringing the flood are always petty. Whereas the story of Noah in the Bible is very different. In the Bible, people are behaving cruelly, not to God, that they're not insulting or hurting God at all. They're hurting each other. Their hatred and their violence and their envy are damaging each other and damaging the world. And God looks at this and he just can't abide it. He can't abide the hurt they're doing to each other. It can't carry on. His sense of justice and what's right won't allow him to permit the cruelty to continue. But there's one person who isn't that way. There's one person who is faithful, who's still a friend of God, and that's Noah. And God shows Noah how to be rescued. He shows Noah how to make an ark, how to keep that which is good. In the other flood stories, the hero generally keeps all their family's stuff. So they keep their own herds, they keep their own gold. But in the story of Noah, Noah keeps as much as possible of God's creation. That's what's good. It's not the stuff Noah has, it's what God has made. And through what he does with Noah, through the salvation plan of Noah, God preserves all that he can of what's good, and rescues what he can of what's good from this place of evil and hatred. And through all of the storm and all of the crisis of that flood, Noah remains faithful, and he trusts God, and he sends out the birds, and he waits for God to tell him it's time to leave the ark. And eventually, when Noah leaves the ark, God makes this promise to Noah, saying, "Look, I'm not gonna destroy the world in this way again. You don't have to worry that you're gonna have to build another ark in a few weeks' time." And his symbol of that covenant with Noah, not to destroy the world in that way, as he hangs his bow in this rainbow in the heavens. He sort of puts up his war bow, and he's implying there that there's a better answer. that there's hope that comes from a different place. And the Bible reveals that that hope is Jesus, that bow is aimed no longer at the earth, but at God on high, who himself will have to bear the punishment for all the wickedness that followed. Noah isn't out of the ark for very long before that old story, the old pattern, falls back into life. So often we backtrack into bad patterns of life. But the story of Noah is one in which God is the main focus. It's God that's rescuing, God who's being just, and God who's preserving all that is good. And I just want to encourage you today, if you're feeling isolated, that's an experience that God understands. He was with Noah in the ark in that experience of isolation and separation, of being cooped up. But that day will come when the flood waters will go down and God will lead us out of our homes, and we'll have the challenges whether we fall back into old forms of life, old patterns of life that weren't good for us, or if we'll actually make a new start and do a new thing. Sadly, I can't go and play with this. There's no ponds within easy reach, but hopefully sometime soon I'll trust my kids enough that we'll get to play together with this boat. As always, please do like, comment, let us know if there's anything we can be doing to support you. If you're feeling trapped or isolated, cooped up, do what you can to set in good rhythms of life. Anyone who's been in the Navy will tell you rhythms of life, they can be helpful or they can be a hindrance. So set up some good rhythms of life, get some exercise, get some sunshine where you can, and we'll be back again soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.